Welcome back to Season 2 of Conversations with Colie podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Miller, the author of the book series A through Z Guide to Raising a Good Human, a book series that I wrote to start the communication process between parents and children, starting from birth and why conversation is important. This year, I want to invite you to join me and my guests as we talk about all the subjects and topics that we hear about in everyday life, like human trafficking, grief, relationships, near-death experiences, and all the insights that we can learn from these subjects and topics, and how to look at things from both sides of the spectrum without using bias. Join me and my guests this season as we heat up the summer and the airwaves with our hot topics, and we start opening the doors and shaking out the rugs that we have been carrying with us through generations to truly be the change. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today I'm chatting with Vanessa Cardenas, Betrayal Recovery Specialist. Welcome, Vanessa.
Nicole, thank you so much for having me. We're going to have the most amazing conversation. I look forward to it.
Yes, I'm excited. But first, we got to start with an icebreaker question. Do you believe in New Year's resolutions?
That's a really, really great question. I love that question. Part of me does. Let's say the part of me before betrayal. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The part after betrayal. Not so much. Not so much in signifying a specific day. I think that we should always be striving and moving forward. And it doesn't need to have to be a specific day that we do that. We can choose any day. It doesn't have to be a Monday. It doesn't have to be the first of the month. It doesn't have to be New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. It can be any day. You can pick some random day and decide, you know what? Today's the day I'm not going to put up with crap. Today's the day I'm going to change this or that. So in terms of resolutions, when we package it that way, a little challenging for me and most people after betrayal.
Yeah. Yeah. What does it mean to be a betrayal recovery specialist for people who don't know?
Well, I'll put it this way. Nobody studies betrayal unless they've gone through it. And betrayal can be several different facets. It can be intimate partner betrayal, which is what most people think right out of the gate. I've been cheated on, somebody cheated on me, I cheated on someone else. So intimate partner betrayal. And there's a lot of different facets in that component. Then there's self-sabotage, which is a form of betrayal. We betray ourselves. And then there's betrayal in business. Yeah, your coworker takes your idea and runs with it. Suddenly it's a great idea. The boss thinks it's a great idea and they take credit for it. But if the boss doesn't like the idea, suddenly it's back to being your idea. So yeah, we have those type of situations as well. And betrayal runs from childhood. We make fun of, and we have movies related to it, like Mean Girls, the cliques, and suddenly you're ostracized. That's a form of betrayal when your best friend who you've known for, from kindergarten, and now you're in high school and you're the plague. She doesn't want to have anything to do with you. That's a form of betrayal. Yeah. And there's lots of little itty bitty betrayals that we can have throughout our life. And if we're not equipped with how to handle those little ones, when we get the big one, it's a doozy. It knocks you on your tokus.
Yeah. So tell everybody how you got into becoming a betrayal recovery specialist.
I had been married for over 2 decades to my junior high school sweetheart. And we fell madly, deeply, fully in love. And I thought that I was inoculated from anything terrible happening to me. I checked off all the boxes. I had, I had a psychology degree. I was in a C-suite executive position. I had 2 beautiful children, the house, the cars, money in the bank, everything else. And I thought I had done everything right. I was everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And one day my husband and I were walking through Central Park, and I'm people watching and I'm just enjoying the moment. And he sits me down on a bench and he says, Vanessa, there's something I need to tell you. And I turn to look at him. And again, it goes in slow motion. It does. When something traumatic happens, they say you see your life flash before your eyes. Yeah. Well, I understand what that means.
Yeah.
My husband sat me down. He looked right at me and he says, there's something I need to tell you. And I looked over at him and he says, I've met someone. And just like that, my whole world shattered.
Yeah.
I fell apart. I fell into a zillion pieces, broken in every single aspect you can think of. I was a shell of myself for days, weeks, months. I was on autopilot. I just could not function. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. What did I do? And I replayed our entire relationship just over and over and over again, looking for those clues of what did I miss? What did I do? What didn't I do?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the moment, and it was such a distinct moment for me, that I was just laying on my bedroom floor, just ugly crying, ugly sobbing, hyperventilating, and just wishing for a reprieve from all the pain that I was in. And I promised God's spirit source, if you could just relieve some of this pain, I promise that I will not allow another woman to go through this experience, that I will do everything in my power to make sure that somebody else doesn't feel like this. That's my promise. That's my pact that I would do. And the next day I woke up and I felt a little better. And then the day after that, a little better. And the third day I felt a little better. The fourth day, I got that shove. You made a promise. You made a promise to help someone else. And the only way you're going to be able to help someone else is if you get out of the cesspool and the pity party that you have shoved yourself into and figure out how to get out. And that's what I did. I went back to school and I studied, and all the greats of their wisdom. And I took bits and pieces from everyone and put it all together for my recovery. And then I started working with others, and I've been doing it since 2017. And it's, it lights me up in such a way
Yeah.
that I can help someone else, because I hesitate to say this because this causes a lot of concern with a lot of people. I put it on my Instagram account and it just lit up. I'm better for the experience.
Right.
I am a better person, wife, woman, friend, mother, coworker, colleague, coach for the experience of going through betrayal.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't advocate it. No. It's the worst experience you can go through.
Right.
But I can tell you this, if you go through it, if you're in the depths of it right at this moment in time, you will get through to the other side and you will be better for the experience.
Yeah, especially if you can look at it from that way, because when it first happens, I mean, your whole world shattered, you're in your emotions. And what does that feel like? 2 decades. How scary is that?
Yes, exactly. You just you see your life flash before your eyes. And when he said those 3 words, I've met someone, in a heartbeat, I already had them married, having kids, off on their own, and here I am left, a sloth, just a mess of myself. And again, in that split second, I had them already married and whatnot. And as it turned out, in my particular case, and again, every single relationship is different. Every single betrayal is different.
Yeah.
In my particular case, my husband said that to me to get my attention. There was a woman who was paying attention to him. and he was enjoying it. He was enjoying the attention, but he didn't want that from her. He wanted that from me, because I had suddenly turned into everything for everyone else. Our marriage had become a micromanagement of household chores, and shuffling the kids from here to there, and organizing our date books. What time do you have this, and when do you have that, and everything else. We lost that intoxication of love, because we fell into that comfort level. And here was a woman who swooped in and started paying him attention and boosted his confidence. And he was like, oh, I really like how this feels. So he thought by telling me that he's met someone that I would rise to the occasion and he's my man and everything else. He didn't anticipate me falling apart.
Right.
He absolutely did not. And I turned into a Karen that day. I raged on him in the middle of Central Park. How I was not arrested, I have no idea, because I just unleashed the pain, the sorrow, the rage. I could not believe what I was hearing, because in my mind, again, I already had him leaving, getting remarried, having kids, whole life with someone else, not me. And I never gave him that opportunity to explain himself, because in my mind, it was already done,
Right.
it was, kind of thing. And we fall into that when we are betrayed, when we hear those words, when we discover that text message, when we run into them together, when we come home early and they're in our bed. There are all these different scenarios of betrayal. And I work with clients both on the receiving end of betrayal. It's already happened. And then I also work with couples to preempt it. Because one of the things that I have found, and again, there's no statistical information on it as of yet, but there will be at some point, because people don't talk about betrayal.
Right.
A lot of people don't own up to it and say, hey, I really screwed up. I slept with someone else. I engaged in an emotional affair with somebody else. I liked, 40 women in bikinis. I liked men with their shirts off on social media, because our thumbs, they aid us.
Yeah.
Betrayal, because we swipe left, we swipe right, we swipe up, we type away, we become warriors with our thumbs. Very much so. So I work on the other side to preempt betrayal, because one of the things that I have found in working with individuals on betrayal is a lot of times betrayal happens during pregnancy. Oh, what a double whammy.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your first pregnancy, you've got all these wonderful emotions and all of these concerns and what's going to happen and everything else and whatnot. And we lose sight of the relationship, and the man feels somewhat ignored. And again, I'm not making any excuse. There's absolutely no excuse for betrayal. Never, ever, ever, ever. But men during pregnancy tend to gravitate away. And that's when betrayal happens. And I want to preempt that by talking to women who are pregnant and say, hey, listen, here are a couple of things to keep in mind. Here's a couple of things to look out for. Include him in how you're feeling and the wonderful things and how he's going to be such a great father. Because one of the things I suggest on both sides of the betrayal, preemptively and after the fact, is that we need to go back to that intoxication, but we also need to go back to being each other's caretaker of the confidence. Because believe it or not, the most attractive thing, both to the male species and the female species, really, truly is confidence. Oh, when a woman holds her own, regardless of her body type, regardless of her hair color, everything else, when she is confident in her own skin and her own body, regardless of the shape and size, it's so attractive.
So true.
And it's same thing with men. A man that walks into a bar that's 5'5", but commands the room and knows he's it and has that confidence. I'm not talking about arrogance.
Right.
Yes, it's attractive. It is. So we need, as couples that are in responsible relationships, we need to caretake each other's confidence. The best example I have for this is with my husband. My husband never wears red. He's never worn red. It's usually black t-shirts, navy t-shirts, gray t-shirts. And my daughter got him a red t-shirt for Manchester United soccer team. They wear red. So he happened to be wearing a red t-shirt. I don't recall ever seeing him in red. And I sat down and I kind of thought out loud, like I didn't even realize that I had said it, but I was like, wow, you look really good in red. It really brings up your biceps. It brings out the color in your face, definitely brings out your chestnut eyes. I really like red on you. It's a good color for you. And I just said it very haphazardly. Well, my husband is starting to wear a lot of red.
Oh,
boosted his confidence. He felt great. So now, every once in a while, especially when we go out, he's wearing red.
That's awesome.
Because I said it. So I really encourage couples to be the caretaker of each other's confidence.
Yeah.
And also for women to receive. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to give a little bit of a biology. When a woman ovulates, her egg releases and it sits and it waits. It waits for the fastest swimmer to come. Doesn't do anything. It doesn't meet halfway, nothing of the sort. Unless there's a barrier, the egg waits.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage my female clients to do the same, meaning if your man gives you a compliment, receive it. Regardless of how you feel, receive it. There's so many times, and women can remember this. I know that they can, where they're just not feeling good. Maybe they're on their period, menopause is starting, whatever it is. They're wearing a pair of sweatpants, they're wearing a t-shirt, they're wearing a pair of sunglasses, flip-flops, and they run an errand and then they come back and their husband says something. There's something about what they look like, whether it's the glow or the glistening or something. And the man will say, wow, you actually look really good. And the woman, oh, this old thing,
Yeah.
no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss what he says. Take it, receive it. Oh, thank you. That's all. Because then what men do, they do it again. And they do it again. And they do it again. And they're caretaking your confidence. Receive it. Just take it all in and receive it with an open, generous heart. Very nice.
I love that. I love that. So talk about how you help people in business, because that was a good point that you made. There's a lot of people who try to take your credit, or they try to betray you in ways like that might be coming for your position and lots of different things. How do you go into the workplaces and help employers and businesses to avoid that culture? And what do you think brings that out in people?
Great question. I'm going to go from back to front.
Mhm.
What brings that out in people has a lot to do with management. Absolutely has a lot to do with management. Managers and those in leadership positions need to cultivate their people. They need to build their confidence so that they come forward with their ideas rather than talking amongst themselves, because they feel like, okay, I can talk to my colleague type of thing. And their colleague might say, oh, that's a great idea. And then suddenly, a week later, suddenly they're pitching the idea in a pitch meeting. And you're like, oh, no, that was my idea. And sometimes those that get betrayed in business are because they don't have the confidence to speak up and say, hey, that was my idea. Or initially go to their supervisor, their leadership, and say, hey, I have an idea. Management needs to be receptive to that idea and say, you know what? Let me hear the idea. Let's kick it around. Let's kick the can down, and hear about it. Management sometimes, most of the time, is very much the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to train our leaders and have that opportunity to really train them to be leaders. A lot of times what's happening is people are getting promoted into management because they do their existing job really well.
Yes.
So they get promoted into management. Management's a different beast. It is. You have to have those skills to be able to interact with other people and caretake their confidence. Ask them questions instead of beating them down. If you see that Roger has missed his target numbers 3 months in a row, rather than calling him into your office and saying, listen, if you don't get your numbers up, you're fired, but rather bringing Roger into the office and saying, hey, listen, I noticed that your numbers are slipping. I know that you noticed that your numbers are slipping. What's going on? Tell me what can I do to help? And sometimes it's something so minor, but can be helped. I had a situation here within my company that we had an employee that was always late. She was always late. And then when I sat her down and said, what's going on? She goes, my kid's schedule changed and I have to wait for them to get on the bus. And then I'm delayed because I'm behind the bus. And if I could actually just get here a half hour later, I could stay a half hour later and then I'd be golden. And she was never late from that point on because we moved her start time to accommodate her rather than just being hard-fisted and going, you're always late. If you're late 3 more times, you're out. Come on. There needs to be a level of humanity in this. And again, workers can feel betrayed by their colleagues, by their management, because they don't feel that they're being heard. So when I come into organizations, the first thing we talk about is being heard and being able to communicate in a way to be heard, because we have the capacity to think that other people can read our minds. We think that if we subtly hint, the sink always has a coffee cup in it. Okay. Kind of thing. Rather than saying, hey, Roger, do you mind that after you finish your coffee, could you clean out your cup and leave it in the strainer? Yeah. Direct. And a lot of people aren't direct. No. The coffee cup in the sink, suddenly there's a memo that goes out to 200 people saying, oh, by the way, could you please remember to rinse out your coffee mugs?
Yes.
Addressing the issue.
Aggressive communication. Yes.
Exactly. So yes, that happens.
When I saw that you are a betrayal recovery specialist, I was like, that's brilliant, because in all facets of our lives, from the moment we hit consciousness, there is a betrayal that happens and we carry it through. Do you study with kids, like how the betrayal of a child affects them as an adult?
Yes. Yes, it definitely conspires that way as well. With intimate partner betrayal, when you go through that experience and you make the conscious clarity decision whether to stay or to go, your children are actively involved in this. They are. Whether it's a divorce situation or it's a staying together and trying to rebuild, they experience all of the arguments and the fights and everything else. And we really need to learn to talk to our children in a way that's age appropriate. And this question comes up a lot because the one who has been betrayed wants to scream it from the mountaintops. They want everybody to know what they did and how I'm hurt. And we don't realize in our anger and our frustration what it does to our children. And in what I mean by that is sometimes the best intentions, mom and dad will take the kids to Disneyland, and, the kids are having a great time in this and that. And then they pull them into the bedroom. Mommy and daddy have something to tell you. We're getting divorced. And now we associate Disney with divorce.
Yeah.
We really need to think about our young children and how they're going to experience this betrayal as well, and to let them know, and most important to clients, and I encourage them to tell their kids as well, though something terrible has happened to you or to our family, wasn't about you. You had
Mhm.
nothing to do with this. We still both love you. You are the most important thing. And just really hammer that in, because children become very fearful. Oh, if I don't do the right thing, mommy's going to leave, because daddy left. He didn't do the right thing. He was made to leave. And all these scenarios, we talked about the movie In My Mind that happened instantaneously. Children do that as well. And they hold on to it until
Mhm.
adulthood. And then when they're very cautious about relationships. And I don't want that. I love that young love. That young love. Yes, you can get your heart broken. It's a passage of life. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But betrayal after investing years into the
Yeah.
situation, and again, for teenagers, one day can be 1 month. I understand that. But just a healthy situation. And again, we have the warriors with our thumbs. We also have the opportunity to really show the next generation how to love, how to get into a responsible relationship,
Yeah.
how to use their words, how to talk, how to understand that the world is not filtered. It is not. It is not an Instagram post of an ideal situation. There will be ups and downs. There absolutely will be. But the question is, will you go up and down together,
Mhm.
or will you clash with each other?
Right. So, how can we change the narrative that, because it sounds to me like people would much rather betray each other than to just be honest and be truthful. How do we change that mindset? Because, and where did that mindset come from, that the truth is mean? And so betrayal might be better. If you
Yes.
might not get caught. You know what I mean?
Yes. No. I definitely understand what you mean. It's an interesting phenomenon, because one of the major reasons why betrayal actually happens is just as you said. A couple will be going through some hard times, and the one spouse will be holding on for dear life to the other spouse, and the other spouse feels suffocating. They feel that they got to get out, but they won't be released. So how can they be released? They have to do something drastic. I mean, if you remember in the Godfather movie, his wife, wanted out of the marriage, and she knew that he would never let her go.
Mhm.
And then she aborted his son. And
Mhm.
she says in the movie, I did the thing that I knew that you would never forgive me for. And she was right. He never forgave her and he ostracized her from the family. She got out. That was her goal. And sometimes in relationships that are too suffocating, one party wants to get out and they betray rather than using their words to
Mhm.
communicate how they're feeling. They do the most unthinkable thing with no feeling whatsoever, because usually betrayal isn't about feeling between the two partners, the affair partner and so forth, but it's just a way of getting out of the relationship. And it's sad that we as humans have lost the art of communicating, because we rely on these now,
Yes,
and we lose that sense of being able to talk, to be able to communicate our feelings. I feel, I felt, I'm feeling. Because when you say any of those three things, nobody can argue with you how you feel. Nobody can change how you feel.
Mhm.
And it's very, very important. And we use language very decisively. You never, you always. And these two words, never and always, they're so contentious. They cause people to become immediately defensive. And then there's the other side of the spectrum where ghosting. Ghosting didn't happen when I was dating, ghosting didn't happen 10, 15 years ago, where somebody just like completely disappeared,
Yes.
go out on a date or two and then they're gone. Like,
Yes.
really? Let's go back to being human.
Yeah.
Let's take the social media, which was designed to connect us, which does
Right.
really
It's divided us.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much so, and get back to having human contact. And
Yes.
that's what,
Yes.
you see the rush coming in now because of COVID and everybody in lockdown and everything else. Now, everywhere you go, people are out, they're smiling, they're engaged superficially.
Mhm.
They really struggle with how to communicate. And you can see this. Walk into any restaurant and you will see everybody on their phones.
Yeah.
And it's like, really?
Yeah.
I have a rule that anywhere I go, any networking event, anything else, my phone is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And people comment to me about it. They'll say, "Oh, let's book a date," or whatever it might be. And I'll be like, great. Here's my email. Here, put it into your phone because you're already holding your phone.
Yes, I gotta find mine.
I don't have my phone with me.
Yeah.
What?
I'm like you. Yeah.
I'm like, I want to engage in a conversation. I don't want to see the top of your head. And I definitely don't want, we're going to have a society of people that are hunched over because they're so used to being on their phones. And it's like, let's focus on the person right in front of you
Yeah.
because you never know who you're going to meet and what kind of conversation you're going to have. And it could lead to so many things if you would just
Get out of your phone.
smile, say your name. Hi, I'm Vanessa Cardenas. I'm a betrayal recovery specialist. And
Yeah.
that's always very intriguing because everybody's like, what? And I'm like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like what?
Yeah.
Because it's so needed though. This is all points. These are things I've been thinking about. I'm just amazed that I'm having this conversation right now because I'm like, when did we get to a point? But you're making all valid points. When you have a conversation with people, they will start a conversation, you will start to add, and they will do this while you're talking. And I'm like, what? When did this happen? Why are we doing this? But it's so true. We're so dialed in, we're disconnected from ourselves, let alone everyone else.
Such a great way to put it. Very, very much so. And I want to go back to the time where we would do mono tasks instead of multitasking. Monotask. Let's focus on one thing at a time. And something very unusual that I discovered, it was really fascinating about how addictive not only our phones are, but how addictive certain video games are. Most video games. People can play them for hours and they interact with each other, which is fascinating as well. I've heard a lot of couples meeting that way, which I find very, very fascinating. But what it is, it's the music within. The music is specifically designed for concentration. And I found this really fascinating and I explored it, especially with the very popular game Halo. And if you can find it on YouTube in terms of just the music, and you play it in the background and you realize, wow, I can actually really focus on something because of the way the music is, the cadence and so forth. And I thought, that is amazing. I would love that to be in a networking environment where it's just, like music in the background, but just playing, because then you would see people being able to focus, and just look up and say, hey, hi. What's your story? What are you up to? And I always really floor everybody around me because I don't walk around with my phone. I'm not looking at it when there's a possibility that I might see somebody somewhere, because I want to engage in a conversation. I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
What's your story? What do you do? And I've met the most fascinating people that way, and they've met me. And that's what makes the world go round. Besides love. Love absolutely does. But it's also connection.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 So talk about what your business is, what it's based around, and how people can come to find you if in business or in their lives they are struggling with a betrayal or to stop betrayal culture.
Great question. Um, I used to be the best kept secret in New York. I'm based out of New York, and it was just referral, one to the next type of thing. I really wasn't out there because, again, for me, I felt, you know what? If I can help just one person, that's good. Two
Yeah.
people, great. Three people, wonderful. And then I started a support group, which I absolutely adore. And we have, 12 of the most amazing women that come in and are vulnerable and share and everything else. And I love that as well. And it was only in the last year that I got the gentle shove of, you need to be out there. It can't just be New York, and one of my
Yeah.
New York clients referred somebody from the West Coast. I had a client from California and she referred somebody else and stuff. So I was underground for a really long time, but then
Yeah.
I became front and center, and I'm on Instagram, on Facebook. I handle that myself because this whole AI thing that's going on and the bots and being
Yeah.
able to communicate that way just feels really icky to me. I don't like that at all. I'm like, really? We're going to start chatting with AI to help us with betrayal or help us with grief or
Yeah.
any topic that brings out so much emotion. AI, really?
Yeah. That's almost having it taught to you by a textbook person, not somebody who's been through it.
Exactly, exactly. So I handle my own Facebook and my own Instagram. I love it. I absolutely love interacting that way. But for me, it's my website. My website is my pride and joy. It is my labor of love. I write so many blogs from my perspective, from my point of view, because I am not cookie cutter. I am not textbook. I am not following a structure where on week 3 we're going to talk about triggers, and on week 6 we're going to talk about decisions, and week 9 we're going to talk about
You're
something else.
authentic. You're
Yeah,
organic.
yes, exactly. I want my
What a
clients to
concept.
come in and say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I need help with, and we hit the ground running and we go from there, because my goal is not to work with clients for a long period of time. Why? Because they need to move. They need to move on, not be in quicksand where they're fighting and they're sinking deeper. No, we take 2 steps forward, we take 1 step back. Sometimes we take 2 giant steps forward. Oh, we've made some progress. And then we take a step back. It's okay as long as the momentum keeps moving forward. So my website is where all my resources are. And I was fortunate. I loved Stephen King when I was a teenager. Oh my goodness. I absolutely adored him. And I did the horrible thing. I tore out a page from a library book because it had the most beautiful quote. And in essence, the quote said, and I condense it, the most important things to say are the hardest things to say, not for the want of a teller, but for the want of an understanding ear. And when I decided I was going to get out there and do my website, understanding ear jumped at me and said that's
I
it. That has
love
to
it.
be your URL. And I thought for sure I'd have to wrestle it away from somebody. Here I am getting a URL in 2023. Understanding ear must be taken. There has to be another Stephen King fan out there. And lo and behold, I got it. It was free, and it was there for the taking. So I'm at understandingear.com, and I have plenty of resources there. And then there's a way to connect with me individually. As I mentioned, I only have 8 clients at any given time because I like to be accessible and available. I am not time-based, meaning if you and I have a conversation and we have a breakthrough in 13 minutes, our session's done.
Yeah.
If we have a situation where we're really digging into something and it's unearthing this and that, and there's tears flowing and everything else, I don't go, oops, time's up. I'll see you next week.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you that you're saying all this. Yes. That's the way I want to operate. But people are like, no, you got to do it this way, this way, this way, structure, structure. No, I say
No.
organic, authentic, intimate,
Yeah.
and
Because I
let
remember,
people
I remember
fly. And letting
Yeah.
people fly.
Yes, very, very much so. I mean, I remember in the depths of my betrayal and just hurting and talking to my therapist and just feeling like rushed. I had to get it all out so that they could give me some words of wisdom in the last 3 minutes of our session. And I would leave there feeling worse. And that's not what it's designed for. When you meet with a mentor, a coach, a therapist, they're supposed to make you feel better or at least keep you on the same level. But to make you feel worse and to have shame and guilt of leaving, of, "Oh, I didn't get it out in time," or, "Oh, it just all of this angst that you feel." So I don't operate that way. Not at all. I want to give enough time. But again, it's with the understanding, hey, listen, if we have a breakthrough in a short amount of time, I don't need you to think of the next thing we're going to talk about. No, no, no. I want you to sit in that pivotal moment where your life just shifted because we had a conversation about something. I have a great story about that, if I could share.
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Okay. So I had one particular client, and she allows me to share this all the time because it was such a pivotal moment for her. So she came in and she was really struggling with the fact that her husband had slept with a stranger.
Mhm.
And that was his only indiscretion, that he had too much to drink and a woman came on to him and it was wham bam done kind of thing. There was no emotion attached to it or anything else, but she just could not get past that. She was really struggling with that. She came in and we had talked about it previously. She had brought it up in bits and pieces, but this was the first time that she strung it all together of exactly how she was feeling. And again, we can't argue when somebody says, I feel, I felt, I'm feeling. You can't, there's nothing to do there because they're feeling that, they're in that moment.
Yeah.
So I asked her a question. I said, again, everybody's different. I said, do you have objections to masturbation? And she kind of thought my question was strange. And she goes, no, I've been okay with that. I said, okay. I said, what if what your husband did was masturbation with a partner? And she thought about it and she was like, wow, I feel so much better. Because in her mind, she was seeing this play out romantically. He took off her clothes ever so gingerly. He kissed her neck. He kissed her shoulder. He kissed her breasts. And it was this romanticized version of what happened. And even though he kept telling her, I was a drunken mess, the fact that I probably couldn't even get hard because I had way too much to drink. And this woman was all over me and it was over before I even realized it and stuff. She wasn't hearing any of that because in her mind, she played the story.
Mhm.
But when I interjected that thought of, wait a second, what if it was masturbation with a partner? We take out the love. We take out the love making. We take out the word love altogether. We take almost out the physicality of it. By himself, had a partner. Are you okay with that? And she had that instantaneous moment where she suddenly felt so much better. And we were 13 minutes into the session, and I was like, okay, I need you to sit on that for a while. Let's sit on that. Let's see how that marinates, how you feel. And when she came in for the next session, she's like, wow, I feel so much better. Like it's not an excuse for what he did. It's still wrong and everything else, but how she was viewing it.
Yeah, was the big because we do that. We do that when we're betrayed.
Yes.
We put all the frills on it and get ourselves riled up.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Wow.
Yes. We get ourselves riled up, and then we have what I refer to as the nasty chick voice on our shoulder. Oh, she comes out ready to pounce on everything. And we, as betrayed, think that she's there to help us.
Yeah.
She's not. She's not. She'll beat you down. She'll beat you down in such ways that you're battered and bruised. Forget about the betrayal. Now you're getting it from yourself. Now you're starting self-sabotage and self-betrayal where you're just beating yourself down. And again, confidence. And that's what we work on across the board is the confidence the confidence to be able to speak your truth, to own your boundaries. And boundaries are not about what the other person does. It truly isn't. In my particular case, my husband knows he screwed up. He knows. He knows. My family knows. My children know that he screwed up. He also knows that if he does it again, if he screws up, I'm gone in a heartbeat. There's nothing that can be said, done, caused, anything. I'm gone. My action. That is my reaction to his action. I can't control his actions. I can control my actions, what I will do if this happens. But I can't say to him, you can't sleep with someone else. I can't say that. I don't control him. I control what I'm going to do. You sleep with someone else, I'm gone.
Right. And how do you, because a lot of people have a hard time, how do you let it go where you're not constantly looking for it? Because that'll ruin the relationship. You have to be really aware that you're not over policing it and making it an uncomfortable situation where all of a sudden they feel inclined, or and we would feel the same way if it was us. We would feel inclined to go ahead and do it again. How do you let go of that? Because I bet you that's a big piece of what is wrong with people who try to reconcile and it doesn't work out, is they can't let it all go.
Yes, it is brick by brick. It is layer by layer, incrementally. Just because you buy a pair of running shoes doesn't mean you can run a marathon.
Right.
It's not going to happen that way. It's incremental steps, step here, step there. It's transparency. It's being 100% transparent. It's being 100% honest, not even the little white lies that we all do. You know, did you walk the dog? Yeah, I walked the dog and the dog's peed on the floor. You know, it's those little white lies that add up, especially after betrayal. Like before betrayal, you kind of, yeah, did you walk the dog? No, I didn't. And the dog pees on the floor. Okay, whatever. He forgot. We make excuses. After betrayal, oh, no. You have to be 100% honest about everything. And that goes back to communication. And it's about communicating and saying, hey, listen, when you did this, I felt this way.
Yeah.
What can we do about it? What can we do about it? Not what can you do about it or what do I have to do about it? We're in a responsible relationship now. Now it's we. What can we do?
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, is to recognize being in a responsible relationship, which means not keeping secrets, which means treating the other person with respect and understanding, well, hold on, if I do this, if I found out that my spouse did this, how would I feel? Maybe I shouldn't do this. Or being forthright, hey, listen, we went out for drinks afterwards and this woman was hitting on me. You know, I kept trying to shoo her away because we all know that sometimes
it happens.
It happens. It does. And sometimes it boosts the ego. You know, it does. It's flattering kind of thing. But then we come clean to our partner and say, hey, listen, this happened. I mean, I have a funny story related to that with my husband before betrayal. When we would go out to eat, if we had a waitress, he would be what I referred to as flirting. You know, he would say, no, I'm having friendly conversation. He would be doing this in front of me.
Right.
And she would be playing along with it because, of course, she wants a bigger tip. I get it. Same situation. If it was a male, if it was a waiter, he would pay attention to me. My glass of water would always be full and my husband would be choking because he doesn't have anything to drink, you know, type of situation, because the waiter's completely ignoring him. But this was before betrayal. Well, after betrayal, now this friendly conversation, no, this is flirting. This is flirting. Yeah. Watch yourself, you know, type of thing. And he understands that. He definitely understands that. But I also understand that sometimes any male, can get the attention of a female that can be aggressive and not take no for an answer. And really, he has to put the brakes on it and be like, hey, back off. But when that happens, he needs to communicate to his partner and say, hey, listen, this happened. And I did this.
Yeah.
And it goes a long way because he doesn't say anything. And one of the buddies say, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that little chick was really all over you last night. You are in the doghouse. But if you come home and you jump in front of it and say, hey, listen, she wouldn't leave me alone. Like I couldn't get her off of me, and whatever the circumstances are, come clean, say it. And women, receive it, acknowledge it, hold your reaction, respond. Very, very difficult. And the first thing I teach a lot of my clients is how to breathe.
Yeah.
Sounds really strange, but yes.
No, it's not.
You have to learn how to breathe. Pause. Take a deep breath in and release. I mean, breathing. And it always baffles me. And since I'm work in the corporate America, I work with people that are smokers. Have you been a smoker?
Yes, I smoke.
Okay. You'll understand this then. So I had a colleague that smoked, and she had a very high stressed job. She was on the phone all day long, customer service, very trying. And she would be just so agitated. And she's like, I'm going to go out for a cigarette smoke, a cigarette break. And she would leave and she'd come back and she'd be so relaxed. And I'm like, boy, I want what she has, but I wasn't going to start smoking. But I was like, I'm really intrigued. So I started going out with her, not to smoke a cigarette, but to kind of see what's going on. And I made a fascinating discovery. It wasn't the smoking. It was the breathing. It was grabbing the cigarette. And what do we do? The first thing that you do when you light a cigarette? You take a nice breath. You expand your chest. It goes all the way down to your hips. Yeah. And what do? And then an average cigarette is 15. So you're dragging in, again, more than the shallow breathing. It's a little bit down, and then you release. And then the last puff, when it gets all the way down to the end, what do? Take a nice deep breath. Yeah. And what do? You hold. And then you let it go. It's the breathing that's doing it. It's not necessarily the nicotine. It's the breathing. We get addicted to the breathing. The breathing feels good. And a pack of cigarettes has 20 in there. So they're practicing this breathing. And I'm like, I encourage my clients, breathe without a cigarette.
Yeah.
Breathe without a cigarette. Sure. But you need to do it 15 times as if you have the cigarette in your hand. Go for it. Breathe in, hold. Audible, release.
Use all of your lungs, because a lot of times we don't.
Yeah, exactly, because we're so used to shallow breathing all day. Like, we're not getting enough oxygen in there. And oxygen feels so good.
Yeah.
It feels so good. Very much so. So yes, that's a technique that I teach my clients all the time. I do it in workshops. And just like you, who's, a former smoker, they relate to that. They see it, they get it. And they're like, yeah, that's what most smokers miss. They miss breathing. So
it's a social habit as well.
Too, but again, we can go out and we can have a cigarette breathing break and we can do it together. Because that's the best thing when you go into workshops and they do breathing exercises. It's the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing. So enjoy it. Breathe in, release it, and enjoy that feeling of just expanding your chest, expanding your lungs, straightening your spine, and just feeling that and feeling the sensation of being relaxed.
Yeah, you can think a heck of a lot clearer. Until I started deep breathing exercises, I didn't realize how disconnected from myself I was. Until I started doing meditation and realizing, like, shit, man, I have been depriving my entire body of oxygen. And that helped me immensely. So
exactly.
There is a lot to it. There is so much to it. So do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with people?
Well, I love a quote that has served me very well, besides Stephen King's wonderful, understanding ear. The other quote that has resonated with me for decades is Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor. He wrote an amazing book, very hard to read, Man's Search for Meaning. And within it, he says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And I love that because I agree wholeheartedly. I can't change the fact that I was betrayed. I can't change it. I can't change all the circumstances around it either. I can't change the past. That's why the rear view mirror is small in a car and your windshield, which is the future, is so big and bright and right there. We're challenged to change ourselves. And that's exactly what I did. I'm a completely different person than I was before betrayal. As you can see, I have a pink streak in my hair. I walk into board meetings with my pink streak in my hair. I wear Doc Marten boots on my feet because they keep me grounded. And I own who I am. I love who I am. I love looking in the mirror. And that's completely different than when I went through betrayal. When I went through betrayal, either most of my mirrors were shattered or they were covered because I couldn't look at myself. I was so disgusted. I was so full of shame. I was so full of guilt. I took on all of those emotions unnecessarily, but that's what we do. We do it. We take it all on. We take it so personally. What did I do? What didn't I do? And we suffer and we look at ourselves and we tear ourselves apart. And it's completely unnecessary. And so I walk away now better for the experience, truly better for the experience. And I love who I am. And I love sharing my wisdom with others so that they could feel better, so that they could have that moment of reprieve and eventually get to the point where they too are better for the experience.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I hope more people get on board with covering the betrayal part because until I found you, I had never thought of it that way, but I was like, that's brilliant because it's everywhere. There's some points in your life that you're going to be betrayed. And how can you handle that so you can move forward and lead a more meaningful life? I love that. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you for spending time listening to our conversation. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, please subscribe, like, and share so we can reach more listeners with our powerful messages. And stay tuned to hear about our affiliates and recommendations. They change from episode to episode.